Hi everyone, Sajeel Qureshi here with another episode of RevOps 500. Today I am really excited because we're talking to somebody who I've known in the HubSpot world for a very long time. She's helped mold and build the best and brightest minds in HubSpot. Now I think for the last couple of years you can find her leading the support team that does the answers all the big CRM questions. Mariel Argonza, welcome to RevOps 500.
Thanks, Sajeel. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, and we're just really excited that you're here, and I'll get right into it. So, Mariel, what is your biggest mistake?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this one, and I want to answer that by saying biggest mistake so far. I think it's around culture building, right? And to be very specific, I think it's having this idealistic idea, this idealism, that the culture that I was exposed to in my growing up years, so to speak, in HubSpot, um, was something that I could replicate in its entirety into my own team that I was building out. Like I think this was especially true during my first couple of years as a support manager. So naturally, I was learning new things. I was learning new things about leading people, developing a team's culture, while at the same time um, performance management, right? And um, please also stop me if you want to dive into any for what I'm sharing right now. But basically, I guess I've spent the last 9 or 10 years of my career in HubSpot, and in that decade, I've been also fortunate to be in a variety of teams doing different things. So like I first started out with the implementation team in Singapore. Then I was fortunate to join our learning and development slash enablement team when that kind of started in the region around 2018. And so, I had a lot. I was lucky to like really get a lot of different perspectives and exposures to like different colleagues, not just in the region, but literally across the globe in in HubSpot. And so I think that molded me a lot around what a high performing team looks like or what the culture that powers that high performing team. And so I guess in my mind, like I had this is what I'm saying as it was idealistic, right? Like I had visions of okay, if and when I do get my same team, like I know exactly right, like the kinds of um the feeling or the culture or the behaviors really that I would have, I would like for the team to have. And so I think when I first got my my team in support, I think I might, not might, I think I was really too quick in trying to apply that expectation um, to this relatively young team. Some of them, this is their first job, first company, right? And it didn't quite connect, I think, for everybody. And it took some time to kind of like learn to pull back and calibrate that approach.
Okay, so if I'm understanding it properly, Mariel, you're saying that in HubSpot, when you were part of other teams, you guys were high performing teams. You had all these goals, you achieved many of them, and even the ones maybe you didn't achieve, you were really close to getting those goals completed. But basically, there's a lot of trust, there's a lot of understanding who is good at what, and in the room you knew who could do what, and you worked really well as a team. Then when you left that team and had your own team to lead, you tried to replicate that experience, but found it difficult because maybe when you were on a high performing team, you guys were all sort of veterans in the room. You were all experienced and worked together and had these amazing experiences together. Now you have to go to a brand new place with people who are not necessarily as experienced, and maybe they don't have the same culture that you were just coming out of, and you tried to maybe push onto them too hard. Is that, am I getting that right? Or
Yeah, I think so on reflection. I mean, first of all, Sajil, thank you for saying that you think we were in high performing teams.
oh,
I'd like to think so too.
yes, yes.
Like I've there's like what I said. I think I've really been fortunate to be in um, teams in HubSpot over the years that really, for the lack of a better word, like got stuff done. um, and I think the learning there for me was um, there's there's it's so obvious when I think of it now. There's sub there's a culture, but then there's also subcultures within that culture, um, and I think that was the revelation for me from that experience. And again, I say this now in retrospect, right? Like it should have been very obvious that that was the case. But yeah, I think there was this somewhat like strong expectation that okay, this is kind of how I grew up in the company. These are the good things that I learned. These were like the really good experiences. And I wanted to kind of like copy paste that to some degree, thinking that okay, if I copy paste this formula, like this new team or this team is going to work and it's going to perform well. But you know, didn't turn out quite as what I suppose had it the first time.
Okay, so let's talk about that then. So you say it didn't turn out. Is it that the whole thing was a flop, or did you find a way to navigate the situation where you said, okay, this team is different than the ones that I've been a part of. Did you do different things? Did you become like a high performing team? How did it how did it all unfold exactly?
Yeah. So of course, maybe thinking about thinking about like the experience itself, right? Or maybe to kind of like give color to it, right? I think some of like the initial kind of vision that I had for my own team, it's a team that has high trust. And in order to have high trust, there's this it sounds fluffy, but like transparency, but transparency in a way where you're proactive. If you need help, like say something, or if you fell short, like be the first one to speak up or own to it, right? Like I think there were some of these behaviors um, that I had in mind. Feedback culture, I think like I wanted the team to be like super open about giving and receiving feedback to each other to the point that I kind of created like a weekly peer feedback um, collaboration for tickets that they've worked on or difficult cases. So like I had this like ideas right of how to kind of draw right like some of these behaviors out. Um, but I think that might have come off too strong at the
Mhm.
start to the point where um, why is my manager like micromanaging me on the feedback that I'm giving others or receiving others, right? So to some degree, Sajil, I think it connected with folks who might have had, some sort of experience coming into the role. But for newer folks, I think to get to that point where I had in mind, I think what I should have built more is that psych safety, um, that trust, which okay, I mean, I'll sound like I'm tooting my horn here. Like I thought I did, but again, I think it wasn't necessarily, or it didn't necessarily resonate um, with the team initially, and over the years, I've had iterations as well of the team that I'm handling. Um, And right now, the most current iteration is I'm growing and scaling a team in India, which is a fully remote team. Like when I first started, I actually had like a physical team in Singapore, but now I'm like completely handling a remote team. So there's been a few iterations over the years.
Yeah, so let's talk about that now. So now let's fast forward to today. HubSpot's opened this in Indian operation, and you are supporting a team in India and you're based in Singapore at present time, right?
Yes.
So what's that like culturally? How are you building that team? And this is their first time ever working at HubSpot, which is now a mature company, and you have been at HubSpot for a little while, and these are people who are new to HubSpot and new is a new operation in India. So how is all that? How are you dealing with all that? How are you sleeping at night? What's the situations like? How are you doing the Control C Control V sort of thing? I mean, are you what have you learned from previous experiences now when you build up this totally new team again?
Yeah, I would like to think that over the years I've become more patient with seeing results, especially with concept like a building a high performing or a culture of high performance. Um, I think I've become better in like what I said, like just being patient and kind of seeing that unfold, and just not just and maybe more using as like milestones to kind of gauge, okay, are we still overall, right, like even if progress can be relatively slow, are there still signs we're heading towards where we want to go. um yeah, I mean, first of all, yes, it's a relatively young team, right? For a lot of them, this would be their first full-time job, first tech job. I have some team members who graduated or recent graduates before they joined the team, and it's a lot because the learning HubSpot piece and learning how to support customers using HubSpot, that's just one piece.
Yeah,
There's the other there's the other equally important piece around how do you how do you teach folks how to work,
professional.
especially yeah, especially in a post-COVID situations. For at least half of the team, they go or they went straight to like a hybrid or remote kind of situation, and so the concept of physically going into the office or like even networking with your I think the word networking kind of gets a bad rap sometimes, but just like how knowing how to engage with your stakeholders, with your peers. um, I think a lot of that kind of became almost like a lost art
Yeah,
post COVID. And so there's a lot of I think teaching and coaching folks on how to work in a hybrid setting and in a remote setting, and a lot of it is really around just proactive proactive communication, over communication to some degree, um, lots of trust as well, uh, which goes both ways. Um, so yeah, that's been a lot of a lot of teaching moments, if you will. But it's I think it's so rewarding though when you see someone kind of like have that aha moment for themselves, or like when they finally do something that at first like seemed impossible, or they couldn't envision a version of themselves, right, that could do it. So I think that that is what makes it worth it, like some of the sleepless nights or long days, Sajil, because I I think I'm I'm also fortunate to be part of um, this new generation, if you will, this new generation's work and just professional kind of life.
Yeah, and I think you touched on a lot of interesting points there, Mariel. I mean, I want to kind of dig into the part about how you're saying that these are people with when it's their first job, and in many ways you're their first boss, right? And you're what they you're in their history book now, right? Where when they talk to their maybe they talk to like their children, nieces, nephews, grandchildren, nieces, grandnephews, grand whatever, right? Then they ask, what was your? They ask them like grandpa, grandma, whatever. What was your first? What was your job like at work 30 years ago? And then that person will remember you as, oh yeah, my boss was based in Singapore, and she was like this and she was like that. So it's a pretty unique opportunity to have, where these people are entering the workforce. They're working for this this very very big company. We won't call it a startup anymore. But they and now they have a boss who is not based in India, right? Who is based in Singapore. And they that and then do you ever like think about that at all, and maybe and how you're molding them? It sounds like you do. It sounds like you're having conversations with them a lot about things not related to the HubSpot CRM whatsoever. Maybe it's more about, yes, like you say, like, come on time, go talk to the person next to you. Or it sounds like you're giving them a lot of advice outside of the playing field a little bit. Am I right about that, or am I reading that wrong totally?
Yeah, no, I think definitely definitely aligned there, because ultimately, to me, these two things are so intertwined.
Yes.
Um, and again, the thought of like me playing a part in my team's early career, their initial like professional development. I think what's exciting to your point, Sajil, is like it the impact goes beyond them.
Right.
At some point in time, like they themselves are going to go to new roles. Some of them are probably going to end up in new roles, new teams. Some of them will likely end up like in leadership kind of roles. um, what we do now, what we achieve now, what they achieve now, like I think that has a lot of impact and positive impact, right? I hope to folks who come after them. Um, and it's I'm kind of emotional thinking about this now, but I feel like I've received kind of a similar. Um, I've been fortunate to receive like similar mentorship, coaching, and help as I also grew in my career, and I think to be able to do that for others, like that to me is the only thing that makes sense in my mind. Like, yeah, it makes sense, of course, uh, that I pass it on, if you will. Yeah, it's and like what I said, I think it goes back to the whole like, oh, when you see someone do something that challenged them initially, or they couldn't even maybe yeah envision that they could do it. Like I think that is that really makes it that
That's what you
makes
sign
it
up
so
for.
so worth it. Yeah,
Yeah, that's what you
yeah,
sign
that's
up
what I
for.
signed up for. Yeah,
So
exactly.
so so I mean, what are some of the tricks of the trade then, Mariel? Like, how do you? I mean, you've managed people in different cultures, different places, different skill types. You've hired teams, you've built teams. What are some of like the specific things that you do that are just kind of like maybe things that only you do, or things that you've picked up along the way? What are some of those like manager tricks of the trade that you have?
Oh gosh. I mean, I'd like to say still learning, still refining, of course, but I think going back to the whole psych safety, building trust. Um, not saying I'm the best in it, but I think that's always been something that I've tried to build as a foundation. And naturally, you the that emotional connection that you have with your team member, like and a genuine one. And when I say this, I don't mean like you intrude in every part of their life, but like
Mm.
really making them feel heard, um, feel heard, feel seen, like getting to know them really. Um, I I think that that's not so much a new thing per se, but like I think um, making them feel that you are invested in them professionally, yes, but also to some level building some of that personal connection. Uh, it can be well, one way I try to do that, for example, and this sounds so basic right now, but in my team calendar, we have everyone's birthdays in there. We have everybody's anniversaries in there. Um, or, like important moments. Maybe if someone is getting married. Like I think we have some of these shared kind of like um, shared events. We greet each other. I try to greet my team. Not try. I do greet my team every day. At the start of the day to kind of simulate, like when you're in the office, you would greet folks that you see. So I do that. I also end the day, or letting the team know, right? Like when I'm signing off for the day. So small things that kind of like emulate like in-person kind of interactions. I think setting some time at the start of one-on-ones to kind of like just check in on them and find out where their headspace is at. Um, I think beyond that, making folks feel that they have agency, like that they can make decisions on their own, and that even if they do mess up, it's okay as long as we own up to that mistake, and to do things to kind of learn from that, and do better the next ticket or whatever next interaction that is. Um, I think third thing for me personally is we take work seriously, but we don't have to take ourselves too seriously. So, for example, if I mess up, or if I even if I have my own kind of like yeah mistakes or mishaps, like I share that with the team. I share my performance reviews with my team.
Really?
Sharing,
Oh
yeah,
wow.
yeah. I think that's of course I don't share like I tell them this. I don't share with them all the details, but I think I share them the themes of like what what I did well, what I'm working on, things like these to kind of also show that yes, I'm the manager, so on and so forth. But look, I'm also human. I also have hopes and dreams and goals, and uh, this is how we all kind of play into it. Um, yeah, I think those are some ways that I try to build that trust. I try to build that connection and go beyond like just the usual work stuff.
Okay, so Mariel, I'm going to be very candid here. I've heard, yes, I see managers. They always message their team members on the anniversaries, birthdays, life moments. I've never heard of managers say that they shared their own performance review with their subordinates or their teammates, for example. So, what do you share, and why do you do it? What's the reasoning, and does it help you? Does it help them? I'm fascinated by that one. So just please help me understand the awesomeness about that.
Oh, thank you, Sajeel. I mean, I don't take credit for the originality of it, but it's one of those things that I learned from like my previous managers as well at HubSpot, and um, I don't know, something at that point. I was like, if I ever will have a team, like I want to do something similar. Um, I think it it helps in a few ways. First is just like overall alignment of um, where, yeah, overall alignment in terms of where or why I'm doing the things in terms of building the team or molding the team. Because essentially it's also tied, right, like to my own performance goals and then the
Yeah.
business goals and all of that. So kind of like I think I see that as a way of making some concepts and things that can seem abstract at the start more accessible.
Okay. Wow.
um, and I think as an individual, when my own manager was kind of like doing that for me and my team, I was like, okay, like I get it. Why my manager or the team is going in a certain direction, and this is how in my day to day I can kind of contribute to that and help with that. Um, so yeah, I think alignment is one. Translating sometimes business metrics into something more um, uh, yeah, easier, I suppose, to kind of to process. Accessible, I think, is the word I'm looking for. Um, yeah, I think the other side of that is going back to the whole trust thing, like connection piece. Like again, I want to show that at the end of the day, I'm also
A
a
work in
human. I'm
progress.
also a work in progress myself. Um, and I think there's something about that, right? Like that, at least for me, when my own manager did that, it's like, okay, I mean, if my manager is still working on themselves, I want to keep working on myself too. So, but at least that's how I'm um hoping, thinking that it helps with the team culture.
Well, I think that's yeah. Like I said, I'm pretty amazed by it. I mean, because you know, like it's always a thing, right? Where I mean, you know, managers typically don't do that. They don't share what they need to, what maybe their reviews were like, or what they need to. You know, they say, could be say, oh, that's too much information, maybe, or something like that. Uh, I like what you said though about how it aligns, right? So maybe if your manager is saying, okay, Mariel, we need to close. You need to close as a team lead. You need to close tickets at a rate that's 15% faster for the next quarter. So maybe that's on your review, something that specific numerical goal that you said. And then if you share that with your team, at least they can see maybe where your pressure to close faster might be coming from, right? So it may be aligned because obviously, you know, you're not the one closing the tickets, right? Your team members are.
Yes.
So you have to tell them, okay, close faster. But if they don't know why you're saying that, then maybe they just feel like Marielle is being like just too micromanaging, right? And now maybe if they know, okay, well, Marielle's got a mandate from the head of support, the master of the universe is saying, okay, across the board, HubSpot needs to close tickets 13% faster because customers are getting, you know, impatient. Maybe that gives them context to why Marielle is pushing harder. And is that the alignment that you're kind of talking about, or
Yeah, I think that would be a good kind of
it's
context to it.
wow,
Um,
that's so cool.
I mean, it gives color, right, to why I might be coaching on certain things, or why we might be focusing on um, specific parts of the customer experience. Okay, I know the resolution time or um, yeah, the resolution time is a arbitrary example in there, but yeah, I mean it's hey, we're here as well, right, to provide timely responses to customers while maintaining like a good quality experience for them. So yes, I think it does give color to why are we doing certain things that we're doing.
That's like a that's very unique. You know, that's very unique to to hear that and to understand kind of why? I mean, I know personally, no, I'll consider doing that for sure, just to say, okay, look, this is what I'm working on, and this is what I would, this is why I'm maybe pushing teammates to work in certain things that maybe doesn't, it seems benign to them, it seems minimal or trivial to them, but it's a big deal because of maybe where the goal is coming from and what we're trying to do as a team from, you know, bottom up, top down, whatever, left to right, whatever, which way you want to call it. But alignment is actually a pretty good thing to say, because if they know what their manager is working on, then they know how they're kind of tied together, right? You know, it's such an interesting thing that you do that, and you picked it up from somebody else along the way, which is, you know, even more and more interesting, that like this is maybe a trend that, you know, I didn't know about, but that's one way to build trust for sure. It's a hard thing to do, so I mean, I admire that part. That's amazing. It just really is.
Thank you. Again, I take no credit for the originality.
Yeah, and then let's talk about that, because even you know, there's something behind that too, right? You know, I said this about, you know, 4.5 minutes ago, and then the first thing out of your thought was, it's not my idea. I don't take credit for it. And again, you know, you respected the compliment, but then you also said you take no credit for it. So, you know, you and I both are, you know, we're both Asian, right? Let's call it. And this is a kind of a common thread that I've been told, you know, in my own career, and I'm sure you might have as well. That look, we are very good at like we don't speak out, right, out of context. We're taught a very, there's a very much a hierarchy of respect. There are seniors, there are juniors, and if you raise your voice in some way, it's like we have to really work hard to do that, because it's not natural to us. We're just taught that seniority matters, ageism is a thing, you know, that they have the experience, they have the wisdom. And now you're leading a team of people who are much younger than you. At the same time, though, they also have social advocacy, they have access to other information, and they know, they may be more aware of what's going on around them. Do you find that do they have the same weaknesses that say you or I have, or are they a bit more? Are they bolder? I mean, or and do you encourage that, or is it hard to get out of some people? Can we have a whole little conversation about
Yeah.
our shared Asian connection a little bit, or
Yes, yes, for sure. And I think it's also one of those things that, yeah, you gotta like intentionally work on. Because even today, I think there's still a part of me where it's like, well, if I do good work,
is
it's
somebody else, something
somebody
else? Yeah,
exactly like somebody else will see it, right? Like someone else will like acknowledge it, and good things will follow. Um, so I think I can see that for sure with like my team members. Uh, but I think it also comes from a place of when you're in school, university, like everything is more or less programmatic, and you're you know it's so it's very clear what you do next. Like you have an assignment, you do it. Teacher calls on you, you say something. So I, but I think coming into the workplace, like the reality of it is things are actually much more open. It's more open than what folks are used to. So I think coupled with the whole, I guess Asian sometimes expectation of like we put our head down um and not like rock the boat, if you will. That takes time to kind of like coach folks and get them um, to understand why it's important to have a point of view, regardless if that point of view is um, what's the word for this? It's not that it's good or it's a good or bad point of view. It's
just sharing it.
exactly, but sharing a point of view and sharing the thought process behind that point of view. Um, so I think it takes time to kind of coach and build that in folks because it's just wasn't a thing, I think, growing up, or in schools, unless I guess you're into, I don't know, philosophy, um, kind of
Right.
background, right? Because that's probably going to be drilled into you.
Yes.
Um, but yeah. Anyway, it's I think there's a lot that there's some yeah there's some shyness. There's also like the whole uh hierarchy, like what you said, Sajeel, right? And so, coaching folks, why it's important to have that point of view, coaching folks how to put forward their point of view, how to even like discuss things, or how to. I think conflict is also another bad
Oh
word,
yes.
a word that gets a bad rap, apart from networking. But how to have like healthy conflict, how to have good conflict, because some conflict can lead to good things. Some conflict can lead to good outcomes. Um, so one way we try to do that is um, like in team huddles or team meetings. Um, we try to have just like one team meeting dedicated to just like discussing and debating like what's happening in the company, what's happening in industry. And this isn't something that I could do out of the box. Like this took
Interesting.
maybe at least a year before we got there because there were other things that we were working on, right? Like, but I think the at least the version of the team that I have now, I think we're in that space where we have a relatively good, experience, relatively good amount of tenure, um, where folks now do feel a bit more confident to have that point of view, um, to have to form opinions and to kind of um, defend or even argue for and against opinions. So yeah, it's a work in progress as usual, but I think to like really thrive in a company like HubSpot or a very dynamic industry as it is in tech,
Oh, yeah.
um, I think we need folks who are able to have that point of view, have that mindset, to have a point of view. Because I mean, it's if you don't have it, then how can we advocate for customers? How can we advocate for ourselves, or yeah, for our team? So um, yeah, I think kind of went into the different paths there, but at least that's how I think about that portion.
Yeah, and I think everybody has a point of view, right? I think for us, our shared challenge is that is the courage and the bravery to maybe say, this is my point of view. I'm communicating it. I'm looking forward to the conflict because I believe so strongly in my point of view. And I think for us, it's like you said, it's nose to the ground, just do your job. Just do what the boss says. They know what they're doing. They have great performance reviews. We just say, look, just do what you're supposed to do. Just do what you're told. Do your thing. Uh, the point of view is having the courage even to just to say it, right? And then if you get shot down, understanding, okay, why, how, and then having the courage to continue to do that
Yeah,
because you said, like, who wants to rock the boat, right? That's our we have very high need of approval from our superiors, from the people, our seniors, our the expectations, managing all of that. And so you don't get to where you are though without rocking a few boats or knocking a few people over, Marielle. So tell me, how what were those situations like where you had to develop the courage to have a conversation, and then tell me what it's like to try and teach people to develop the courage to have conversations, because I'm sure you've had them and I'm sure you're teaching people on how to have them now. So it's a two-pronged question.
yeah. I mean, I think it's. Let me try to think. It's. I think it wasn't so. Okay, I have something. So when I first joined the support leadership team uh, in the region, I think apart from building the team, and then building and taking on that team, like the other portfolio I had was to kind of like re reimagine, rethink how our daily operations might look like. So, meaning like what's going to be our staffing mix to make sure that we're always available on chat, on phones. Um, how do we get ahead of like capacity issues, things like these. So, basically, it's things that keep the light on day in
Yeah.
and day out. Um, and it's not so much, I think, stepping on other people or like pushing my ideas too hard. It's probably the reverse, where I I I I I was actually too cautious about making changes drastically, right? Like I think I was waiting for like the perfect data, um, the perfect moment. Uh, who knows when that is actually, right? Like to actually do things. I wanted to take things, gradually, so that, speaking of not rocking the boat, like we don't also introduce too many changes, while so that we also like um, not introduce too many interferences with like our team's day to day, right? So I think a lot of those factors were going around in my head. And I think my background as well in training and learning and development was kind of playing into that. I'm not L&D folks. This is not saying anything bad about the training and all that. It's just that I think I was enmeshed in this mentality where, well, we can't really change training at the at the drop of a hat, right? Um, I guess we can, but anyway, like I think I came in with that kind of um, lens, right? Like let's do things gradual. Let's make tweaks, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a place and time where you do this. Um, and it was actually my manager at the time who kind of like pulled me aside, and like they were the ones as well who kind of just like snapped me out of it. Was like, you're moving too slow, and your
Oh,
and your uh the slowness in your okay, I'm paraphrasing, but kind of like,
yeah.
because I was slow, it was also slowing slowing everything else in the business outcomes for customers.
Wow. So you got
Uh,
pushed.
yes, I did. I got pushed.
Oh, that's great.
Um, and I mean, sometimes you got to do that. Um, I think that's also something that I've learned to do with my own folks, right? Like you want to give them some space to kind of explore things and just build things in the sandbox. If that's taking too long, probably give give them a nudge. Um, so yeah, I think it's not necessarily maybe a direct answer to your question, Sajeel, but if anything, I think I had to kind of push my myself. I had to interrupt myself there.
Yeah, just speed up yourself a little bit. Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. Okay, and like, and yeah, and maybe that's the key for us is that someone has to tell us that we respect. That says they have to give it. They have to. Similar thing happened to me, right? I was, I people have always told me, oh, you're too nice. You're not aggressive enough. You don't go out and push hard. It's not something I learned natively, right? It's the same thing as you're saying, right? Someone who I trusted had to tell me, or multiple people, I say, look, you're too passive. You're too
Mm,
easy.
yeah.
So, maybe to develop the nerve, I guess, or to develop the courage, it has to be someone that we believe in has to believe in us that we have that. Maybe we have that. That's in your case, it's the speed in you to move ahead. And maybe as managers, we have to like tell our our subordinates to, if they don't have the courage, right, if they don't have it, but they have the skill, but they don't have the courage, maybe we have to just give them the courage or give them the belief, because they won't get it on their own, especially if we both work with a lot of fellow Asians, right? And so they just won't get it on their own, right? And it's been burned in since birth, right? That you don't address people by name, for example, if they're older than you. There's specific terms for all those people. It's respect. It's all of these things, right? And maybe we have to, but going into the workforce, they have to develop the nerve to do it, right? So maybe it's, as mentors now, we have to push and be pushed, and things like the performance review do that. So it's interesting how everything kind of plays in a circle, right? Like, it's interesting how that all plays out. But yeah, we need a push. So you needed a push. That's interesting.
Yep. I needed a push. I needed that push, and so I think that's always a lesson. That's always something that I go back to whenever I feel like, why am I hesitating? Like, well, what's kind of like, stopping me from things, and then I'm also able to kind of like extend that when I'm coaching the team, to sometimes things like someone hesitating to ask for help on a on a ticket. It's like, but
Right.
why? Like,
Yeah.
what do you lose? Like, if anything, your customer is waiting for you.
Yes.
Um, and sometimes these are like really positive intentions, because someone wants to take full ownership, full responsibility of that ticket. Which is a great thing to have, a great mindset to have. But sometimes that can cross over to like this perfectionism, where actually the only person benefiting right now is you, no one else. Like, that
Yeah.
customer is waiting. You take away the opportunity for yourself to learn something, to learn to do something.
Yeah, that's a different kind of of ego, or maybe even a little bit of like, I don't want to ask for help, because if I ask for help, what will people think about me? I can't do it on my own. There's all these different things that play into something like that, especially in support, right? Where I'm supposed to give support, not get support at my job. Like that kind of a thing. So it's interesting. Like I do have another question that I've been dying to ask, since I know we got to get into this conversation, and it's because of our different worlds, right? So like I'm much more in a I face customers all the time, but in a different context, right? Where I'm usually involved with a customer if there's a fire to put out, or if it's like a deal to be made, or negotiation to be done. And there's a phrase, right? The customer's always right. Well, Mariel, I had a lot of fun. This was everything I hoped it would be. I learned so much. I Like I said, I've always, as partners, we know kind of what the support system is, and we always tell new users to HubSpot that there's 24/7 support. It's great, and most of the time, marketers are working late at night in the Western Hemisphere at the very least, where most of the HubSpot users are located. So most of the time, they're talking to people on your team, especially if it's a CRM issue, right? So they are, I can speak for all of us, I guess. I will. Where we're very grateful for what the support team at HubSpot does, what your team does, at late in the night for us, and all those sorts of things. So thank you for all that you do. Thanks for your contributions to this great ecosystem that we're all a part of, and thanks for sharing, so candidly, some of your amazing stories with us. It was been very entertaining for me to hear them. Thank you, Marielle, for having us. If you like this, get in touch with Marielle. She's got lots of stories to tell. And thanks for listening, everybody. This is another episode of Red Bus 500. Take care.